There's something to be said about allowing ourselves the space to adapt and evolve, particularly when it comes to our purpose. I think many of us feel as though we might be called to do one thing. And for some of us, we're trying to figure out what that one thing is. But I'm here to make the case that for many of us, we have multiple purposes over the course of our lifetime. Hey, friend, Aaliyah Cheyenne here. Welcome back to the Prolific Hub podcast. Now, your purpose may not be tied to just one thing. It may be tied to multiple things. I think the work then becomes understanding what your purpose is in any given season, taking aligned action to get to the place where you want to be, moving with conviction, and then recognizing and embracing seasons of change when change is inevitable. How you start may not be how you finish. So here are some important questions to ask yourself to dig deeper into your purpose in your current season. What do you already know for sure that you are meant to be fulfilling in this current season? For me, that feels like this podcast. For me, that feels like pouring into a book that I'm writing. For me, that feels like other aligned purpose projects that I'll be excited to share very soon. Another thing to sit with is to think about what lights you up when you're creating something or working on a project. What gets you the most excited? For me, it's sitting down to interview for this podcast or to talk to you and share thoughts and insight and ideas and have a back and forth and ask questions. For me, I feel lit up and excited when I'm pouring into a creative project that I know is going to serve and be valuable to a number of folks around the world. Another question to ask yourself is, what are you naturally good at? What am I naturally good at? What comes easy or second nature to you? And for those things that come easy to you or second nature to you, are those also things that get you excited? Are those also things that light you up? Another important question to ask yourself is, what do those closest to you regularly tell you that you're really good at? Because they have insight about your blind spots. You might not think something is a skill or that you're good at a particular thing, but a friend or a family member might really see it in you. For example, people in my life have told me I could be a motivational speaker. People in my life have told me that I'm really good at analysis and project management and I'm really organized. Those might look like really simple things to me, but for people who lack those skills or qualities, it can be an asset to them or an asset to someone else who might need that for their creative life or for their business. So it's important to get that feedback from those who really see you because they can help you to see the blind spots that you might not even be aware of yourself. I think another important question is to look at what modalities can support you in a deeper understanding of yourself, whether that be your astrological birth chart, your human design, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, your life path number, your soul urge number. I think these are important tools and modalities that can really help you to get a deeper understanding of who you are, what lights you up, what you're naturally good at, what you were born to do. And these are tools that can provide a lot of insight to help you just understand yourself more deeply. So I would think about it. Think about the answers to these questions for yourself and really sit with them and explore them and see what comes up for you. Now, if you're already ankle, knee, cheeks, chest, neck, head deep into a purpose and you feel good about it, great. I love that for you. But if you're that deep and starting to question what's next, or wondering about whether or not this thing feels aligned or if it still feels good anymore, if you're starting to have ideas about a new season of purpose, my advice would be to lean into that, lean into those feelings, explore them. They may be trying to alert you that you need to rest or change the way you've been doing things or trying to tell you that something is out of alignment. It's also important to note that you might just be in your natural state as a creative. As creatives, we know that being creative ebbs and flows. We can go through seasons of extreme creativity where we're just producing and outputting like all of the things that are in our minds like mad geniuses. And then the next season we're resting and recuperating and recouping and questioning everything or coming up with our next brilliant idea. It's part of the creative process. But I think if all else fails, it might be an indicator to embrace the pivot. Perhaps you're meant to close one chapter to start the next chapter, or maybe you're meant to put that book down altogether and start writing a new story. I think all in all, we have to allow ourselves the grace and the space to change and to evolve. And that includes allowing our purpose to change and evolve too. Okay, so with that, I want to share 2 resources that I listened to recently that I thought were extremely relevant. So one of them is lessons learned from running a creative business via the Slay Girl Slay podcast. I thought that episode was short and to the point, but really informative. It really highlighted a number of things for me as a creative running a creative business that we have to be very mindful when it comes to particular things. Running a creative business oftentimes means you are the boss, the manager, the employee, tech support, HR, and everything else. There are no separate functions, especially if you're doing it solo and you don't have a team. You literally are everything. And as overwhelming as that is, it was helpful to listen to that and be reminded of that and be reminded that as a creative with a creative business, I am not alone in that. Another episode that I really enjoyed recently was the Find Your Zone of Genius episode of the Let's Try This Again podcast with B. Simone. It featured Jasmine Mercado and Carla Williams, and they highlighted a number of things that we've talked about on this show as well. Everything from doing your research. We talked about that in our episode featuring Kat Sterling, who is the COO of New Spira and author of Why They're Winning and You Are Not. Kat talked a lot about building a business case, having a business plan, and doing your market research, which is really important. In the same episode of the Let's Try This Again podcast, they talked about pivoting. We also talked about embracing the pivot and pivoting a lot in our episode featuring Shanara Pierce. That episode also talked about knowing your why. We've talked about the importance of knowing your why in a solo episode of this show, and also again in our episode with Kat Sterling. That Find Your Zone of Genius episode of the Let's Try This Again podcast also talked about doing things scared. We talked about that on this show too. We talked about doing it alone, doing it scared, and doing it anyway. The importance of stepping out of your comfort zone. So many other powerful themes came up in that episode. I thought these 2 episodes of these 2 shows were extremely relevant and timely, so I wanted to share them with you. They'll also be linked in the show notes. Be sure to check them out if you haven't already. I found these episodes to be really informative, valuable, aligned with some of the same topics that we talk about on this show, so I definitely think if you are creative, if you are a creative entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, small business owner, large business owner, whatever the case may be, these are episodes that might really be relevant to you. So I think they're worth your time and I think they're worth checking out. So they'll definitely be linked in the show notes below. So be sure to tune in and check them out if you can. Okay, friend. That's what I got for today. So I would love to ask you, how is or how has your purpose evolved? Let me know in a text to the show if you're listening to this episode on Spotify. And I know a lot of y'all are listening on Spotify because as far as my listenership goes, it's increased significantly on Spotify. Spotify has now beat Apple Podcasts as the primary listening app for this show. So shout out to y'all. So if you are listening over there, leave me a comment over there. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, leave me a comment on YouTube. If you'd like to let me know your thoughts in a rating and review, please leave a 5-star rating and let me know your thoughts in a review. Thank you so much for tuning in to another short but sweet episode. Thank you for lending me your time, your energy, and your ears. I appreciate you so much for being here. All right, friend. Have a great rest of your day, evening, or night, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.